One question that can be raised in trustee meetings is why your trust reserve target is the number that it is. So not whether you have reserves or not whether you're above the minimum threshold, but why is it that specific target? Most trusts have a reserve target that exists as maybe it's a percentage of something, but perhaps without clear rationale as to where that percentage came from and whether it's still relevant today compared to when it was originally set. So maybe it made sense 10 years ago when the trust first formed, but has your risk profile changed since then? Has the school makeup changed? Have your strategic plans changed? And if the answer to any of that is yes, then it could be worth revisiting your reserves policy. And it's worth going further than just the headline figure. Are there any strategic plans sitting behind your reserves? So as an example, maybe is one of your schools setting aside a specific amount towards a capital project? And that kind of purposeful reserves planning is different from holding a balance with no specific intention behind it. And trustees quite rightly want to understand that distinction. So building a defensible reserves position means going through a proper process. So reviewing the risk register, working through scenario modelling, being able to map specific risks to specific reserve levels before we present that then to trustees, rather than it just being a number. It has that documented rationale behind it. So, what risks should we be thinking about? Maybe we're thinking unexpected staffing restructure costs or maybe emergency site work. Something that we see in some trusts can be a reliance on the financially stronger schools to prop up those schools that are struggling. And if that's your position, it raises then, further questions. Maybe we need to consider reserves pooling or gag pooling or, trying to formalise that risk rather than, managing it informally. And thinking about contingencies, we often see different trust approaches. So ideally, you'd have a contingency line built into your in-year budget to cover those unexpected costs without needing to touch your reserves. But with the current funding landscape, many schools and trusts, we don't have the luxury of holding that contingency line in the budget anymore. So the reality for lots of trusts is that the in-year deficit is eating into reserves, which makes having that clear documented reserves policy even more important. But when you present this to trustees, they need to see a clear picture of the current and the projected reserves position. So be that both at trust level, at school level, depending on, your policies, and see how that position compares against your reserves target. And if you are in a dwindling position, what is the strategy to try and rebuild that level of reserves? So that last part can often be missing from the board papers. The reserves position's reported, but the plan behind it isn't. And actually, when you get that right, your trustees aren't just accepting the reserves position; they understand it, and so do you.